Terry Show without Jim for another series of podcasts because my good friend is not well. And noble lad that he is, he did not want to expose my family, myself, to anything that he happens to be harboring in terms of illness. So here's to my good friend Jim, wishing you, and I'll reach for my mug here. Yeah. If it was Jim, I would say a hot toddy. Put a little lemon, a little honey, and spice it up with something to make it worthwhile. Chase that cold away. Chase that COVID away. Is it COVID season again? Fall immunizations should be coming out, rolling out with a new vaccine for the fall. Protect yourself. If you're in a crowd, wear a mask, social distance, wash your hands a lot. Get back to those same old routines that kept us safe for so many years. All right. Get well soon, my friend. It's hard talking to yourself in a squeaky old chair in the old hobbit hole. And I'm going to start with this because it plays very similarly in Canada as it does in the United States, but here's the message.
2020 and forced to leave the White House. Trump's economic message has been the same. It has been a message of doom and gloom. Now it's centered around the idea that the Biden-Harris administration ruined the American economy. But that idea, that conceit, is getting less and less believable every day.
Our economy is doing really, really badly.
Here we go, the third straight record close for the blue chips. The S&P 500 also closing at all-time highs.
No vice president in history has done more damage to the United States economy than Kamala Harris.
Another rally underway. The Dow Industrials up 67, the Nasdaq up 43, S&P 500 up 7.25, extending into further record territory.
Kamala Harris is a one-woman economic wrecking ball that will drive our country into a depression like in 1929.
Well, there you go. The same old gloom and doom can be found not just in the Trump-Vance ticket in the South, but in the Pierre Poilievre claim that Canada is broken and economically broken after 9 years of Justin Trudeau. We can't afford more liberal governance. And yet we emerged one of the strongest country out of the COVID restrictions. We started our trade back and regained our GDP. It's not as great as maybe we would like to hope, and maybe the future is still going to be brighter. It's still rated by Bloomberg and by the Wall Street Journal and by the World Economic Forum as the number one country to look for to lead out of the G7 in 2025. Breakout year for Canada. 3 bank rates, central bank rates going down. And yet we just had in the House of Commons a nice little bit of drama play out where a week or two ago we had Jagmeet Singh tear up the agreements for a supply and confidence agreement. And then we had Jagmeet Singh being ridiculed by Pierre Poilievre, sellout Singh. Sellout Singh. Yeah, he likes these pithy sayings, but they signify nothing because he had his chance on, yesterday. He introduced his non-confidence motion. That's how you take down a government in Canada, not with trucks and 18-wheelers camped out in front of the Parliament buildings, but by a vote of non-confidence. And just as successful as the trucker convoy at overthrowing the government was Pierre Poilievre's non-confidence vote. In fact, I have read that it's about the 135th time that the Conservatives under Poilievre, and he's only been leader for 2 years, has been defeated on a motion of non-confidence. You would think it's almost like that's all he knows with expertise how to do because he's had a lot of experience. 135 times a motion's been introduced to the floor of the House of Commons for an all-party vote. And 135 times Canadians of every stripe, of every political leaning, have voted to turn him down. The big one is coming in 2025, when the normally federally scheduled election will be held at some point of Trudeau's choosing, not at the point of Poilievre's choosing. He can choose when to introduce the non-confidence motions, but he can't choose when the federal government will actually call a federal election. So, what do the polls say? Well, if you're a polophobic or a poll atheist, where you don't follow the data, I'm thinking that Trudeau is playing this like a master plays a poker game, and he is keeping his cards very close to his chest. He's in it for the win, is my sense of it. I don't think there will be a leadership change at all. I don't think he's going anywhere, and I think that the anti-Trudeau hatred and vitriol that's been stoked, not just now towards Trudeau, but towards all political leaders who are seeing an increase in hate, email, in being stalked in public streets. That whole thing is now out of control in Canada, and there is one source that leaps to the front of the list when you start talking about reasons why some Canadians are taking it to this extreme. The answer seems to be very much as in Donald Trump stoking hate with his vitriol in the United States in his stump speeches, where he recycles the same old tired stories for 8 years. Only he can fix it. The system is broken. They're the worst at economics. No, just as Kamala Harris is riding a crest of optimism in the United States, where over 100 of the Fortune 500 companies are supporting Kamala Harris. The U.S. economy is booming in ways that it could not, would not, and did not under Trump. So nothing's changed. He is stumping with the same rhetoric. Pierre Poilievre is stumping, has stumped, will continue to chew that apple right until 2025. The polls have him up. And some polls, depending on what you read, is anywhere between 15 is the lowest I've seen to 20 some odd, 22, 21. But I'm not sure that that hasn't been artificially inflated by RT. The coincidence of Russian talking points in Pierre Poilievre's speeches and talking points in conservative platform. Yeah, I was sort of thinking if you start talking like Russians, you might as well raise the Russian flag on what you're doing. Canada is not broken. Who wants it to be broken? Certainly Putin does. Certainly Putin, as Ukraine is struggling to keep that war from escalating and trying to de-escalate it through escalation. Does that sound similar? I think that's the policy I read that Netanyahu is trying to follow in the Middle East. Escalate to de-escalate. In other words, throw as much as you can at your enemy while you can, while you got it. Try to crush them so that they will not carry on. They will lay down their weapons and stop. Cease and desist. Well, that's what Zelensky wants to do. And I think for Trump to praise Putin yet again, just last night, is ridiculous. And if you are a conservative and you're still thinking that A, Canada is broken, B, that Trudeau is responsible for the inflationary trends during and after the COVID outbreak pandemic, if you think that carbon tax is fueling inflation, there is a place in Florida, especially with Hurricane Helene barreling down from the Gulf Coast. There's a place in Florida for you, because your ideas on the economy and on what is working in Canada is going to be underwater. It will not survive scrutiny, and scrutiny by academics. And so this is where I wonder, where do people get their data? What do you read? What do you listen to? What do you watch? And for the life of me, I cannot understand the gloom and doom either in America or in Canada, except the commonality of the two can be observed. And where it can be observed, you can raise some questions about sources. Where does it come from? Who would believe this kind of stuff? And the answer is people who are already believing other things without evidence. And that takes me on into topics that maybe are more uncomfortable because they're based in religious traditions, which is based on faith, not necessarily evidence. And I'll get to another book that I was given to by a good friend of mine, Josh McDowell's God Breathed, which is a form of summarizing his latest beliefs about evidence that demands a verdict. But that's another track where I try to look at these things as expressions of the same thing. One in religion, Christian nationalism. The country's broken. It was founded as a Christian nation. No, it wasn't. Neither Canada nor the United States were founded as Christian nations. And from that premise, you go on to say all kinds of things, that either country is broken because we are embracing more liberal, more progressive policies and systems of support for people who are underprivileged, people who are underserviced, people who are marginalized in both countries. So whether you're talking DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, or you're talking about gender issues, LGBTQIA2S+, or you're talking about ways in which Canada today does not resemble the Canada of Confederation or the Canada of the 100th anniversary at Expo 67 in Montreal. Canada does not represent what you thought it should be, and so in your mind, it's broken. And that seems to be the crux of the matter. People who believe something is broken, then they go searching for someone to point the finger at, to blame for how it is broken. And yet failing to understand how policies have actually worked out in terms of economics or social benefits, the social good. Canada is not broken. The United States is not broken. They are both changing, both with progressive policies, both measurable in outcomes, measurable in investments. And if you're the governor of, I think it's Georgia, claiming that you gave teachers a pay raise, isn't that nice of you? Forgetting to note that the money that they used to distribute that pay raise was from a federal assistance plan. Give the feds credit where credit is due. And the provinces and states, reprehensible lot that you are, keep getting in the way. The Jim and Terry Show, waxing eloquent on things. We didn't even get to the main thing. I was going to talk about carbon tax. Oh well, next time. Bye-bye.